clap.
Hi, Eric.
It's the best opening line.
Yeah, it is. So, my friend's leaving me today.
Yeah.
Your friend's leaving you today. So
Can I call
Dalton,
him? I feel like I can call him my friend now too.
100% he can
That's
call me
awesome.
friend. He thinks very, very highly of you.
He's It's
He does.
sad. It's a sad day.
He sees, he doesn't always tell you this, but he sees a pile of potential of what we're doing and what you're doing, and he thinks that you're going to do great things, and it's a huge compliment because he's a lot like me. Like keep my circle really small, unless you're offering something valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Not valuable like that I can, kind of take from you, but a value to the friendship.
Make your life better, kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
so you've made him think. You've taught him a lot of things, and it's been a great experience for you, I'm sure.
That's awesome. It's good to hear. Hopefully I can capitalize on it.
100%. You got a friend for life, man.
Yeah, that's
Guaranteed.
awesome, man. Well, yeah, it's a sad day. Dalton broke.
Yeah,
Taking
so
off.
what happened, Dalton a few months ago decided to sell his house here in Windsor, and he's moving to Nashville, and it's so funny, but I love this is why you actually do want to be in the NHL, so that you can make enough money to make decisions where you're not stuck in one spot the rest of your life. So Dalton was sitting here, doesn't like the rules. I don't like these rules. I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm going to move to a place where I don't have to do this stuff. So he said, okay, I'm going to sell my house. Sold it in a week, and bought a house in Nashville that same week.
Yeah.
And good for him. So, but anyways, he's been alone for 2 weeks. I picked him up this morning, and he goes, this feels weird, because he's packing everything up and he's going down there, and then he's actually pursuing what he kind of wants to do after hockey.
Yeah. No,
So-
it's the cool thing that you could, people say like money buys happiness. I don't think that's totally true. I think it can be true, but I think it's more like money gets you freedom.
It can.
And that's what the nice thing is. You get when you get a certain amount of money that you've earned from doing whatever you're doing, you can go do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you to make yourself happy with that, but you have the freedom to do whatever you want now because you've earned that. So it's I'm happy for him. It's cool to see that he gets to just figure out the next phase of his life. It's awesome.
It was a really neat relationship that we had because my wife was asking, she goes, "You're gonna be sad when he's gone?" And I go, "Yeah, like he's my bud." But what's interesting about this is I've known Dalton since he's about 10 years old. Trained him as a hockey player in minor hockey. And then obviously as in his pro years. And I've always had a really, not a soft spot, that's not the right word, but I've always had the utmost respect for Dalton Prout because, and not even knowing the whole story, but I had the utmost respect for him because he was a guy that was a leader. He presented himself the right way all the time. He always, if he couldn't make a skate for some reason, he'd go, "Andy, I can't make the skate." He understood my side. He understood that I had a business to run. He respected that. He paid on time. But when he was on the ice, it was all business. And it was just, I always used to point him out, like, watch this guy. This is why he's in the NHL. And then to understand how he got there, that he literally was self-taught, like, all the ins and outs of hockey. So he figured it out on himself. And it was just a drive, right? You know this now, just listening to him, the drive that he was going to play in the NHL. It's just incredible. That side of the relationship was neat. But since he moved back, I think what really was interesting probably to him is that you don't find people that actually are in it, especially at that level. People are always taking from you. They want your time. They want your this, they want your that. And for myself as a friend and him and he was a customer, I just said when he was out with his concussion, I said, just come to PowerTech, man. Just come to PowerTech. And then he actually said it's actually saved his life. Not his, like, you know what I mean? It just gave him sanity and gave him clarity. But our friendship became so tight. Obviously, you know that, like, and you too, became so tight that we've become like, I don't know if we call each other best friends, but it's like we spent so much time together, and we've done so much for each other. He's been so good to my kid and the kids that are around, but I mean, he's been so good to my son. Yeah. And my son's going to miss him, but the beautiful thing is he's a phone call away. But, that's why it's so important to have people in your life that you respect and that are going to call you on bullshit, kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today. People that keep you honest, people that can give you a dose of humility, people that can tell a story that moves you. And he's just been like such a quality person for my son. For me, he's been good for me. Been good for you. We're going to miss Dalton Prout, but of course he will always have something to say with PowerTech, right? He's still a phone call away. Of course he's going to visit and watch my son play hockey, so it's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm happy for him. Him and his wife are going to do great, and just really happy for him that he gets to live his life there. The lights went off early today. There we go.
Yeah,
we don't control the hydro here.
No, it's good though. I was saying to Charlie yesterday when we were talking, I don't know if it was yesterday, a couple days ago, talking about like having friends and the people you surround yourself with, and I was saying to him, like, you know, that there's a saying, if you have one friend you're lucky, two friends you're blessed, three friends you're a liar. Because if to find people that genuinely give a shit about what you're doing, give a shit about you and what happens to you, it's a rare thing. It's not, people think they have all these friends and all, they can hang out with all these people and they have this big group, and it's none of those people actually care when it really comes down to it. When you really need someone to talk to, you need something, people don't have that. And so Dalton's one of those guys that falls in that category where he just genuinely gives a shit about the things that happen to you, like calls and asks what's going on, hopes you're doing well, says things that could be encouraging, tries to be helpful where he can be helpful, calls you on bullshit. Like, these are the kinds of things that's the kind of person that he's been, which is especially if someone that has the reputation he has or has the clout that he has. Like, he wasn't a Sidney Crosby in the NHL or anything, but he was an NHL hockey player.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He was there. People know who he is, and he's a big name. And for him to have as much humility as he has, even, you know, when I was having those classes workouts, sometimes he'd be in. And these are grade school kids, high school kids, and just taking the time to talk to them. He'd be in the gym doing his little workout on the side, and it was funny because the kids didn't know who he was. And he's on the wall. He's up on top there. But it's different. You see him in person or see him in the picture. You don't really connect the dots necessarily. And then I'm seeing him talk to these kids and whatever, and they're just talking normal, like he's just another person, whatever. And I was just saying, I was like, you guys know who that is? And they're like, no. And I just pointed that guy on the wall right there, and they're like, oh. And they all like, so then they want to take pictures and whatever, but just he doesn't have to do that. He could be a complete jerk like a lot of guys are, and it's good. He's an impressive person.
Well, speaking of your, when you said that about your three friends, you're lucky if you have three, you're a liar. So we were driving home. I haven't told you this yet. So Charlie goes, "Hey, Dad, gonna call bullshit on Eric." I go, "Yeah, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well," I said, "one friend you're lucky, two you're blessed, three you're lying." He goes, I got more than three friends." So I said, "Well, you're 15 and you're going to see who your actual friends are." He goes, "Yeah," but so he's going down. He goes, "I got Eric." So he said, "You." He goes, "You're my best friend, Dad." And then he went through a couple of his friends and Dalton and
well, there's a difference though between.
Sorry, go. So that's what I was saying. So I had to explain to him. I said, "But this is, you're going to find out. You're young. Like, for example, when the draft comes, you're going to find out. You're going to get some texts that are like, 'Hey, real happy for you.' And you're going to get some that you're going to thought you were going to get. And you're going to get some people that are really reluctant to give it because there's going to be jealousy and they don't actually want to see you do well and all that stuff." But I said, that's the minor thing, but you're going to find out through life. And I said, I hope you're different than everybody else and you have a lot of friends, but I said, I pretty much guarantee you won't. And a side note of that. So anyways, that's a teaching moment, right? That was good. And I appreciate you talking to him about that because it's true. But a side note of that is, and I don't care if it's early or what, if I hurt anyone's feelings. Last night, one of his best friend got a call or texted Charlie and said, "Hey, did you get a email from this team?" Charlie goes, "No." But when he said no, his face lit up. He lit up because, and he told me after, and he goes, "Well, I've got a Zoom call, like a meeting, because you can't travel anywhere, with this team on Friday." And Charlie puts down the phone. He goes, Dad, I'm not going to say his name. Got a thing. He goes, "I didn't get one." He goes, "I'm so happy. Like I got one, or he got one, and I didn't get it from this team." And he lit up, and he was going around the house like he was so happy for his best friend. Because he wants to see him succeed. And I'm like, that's what you want. That's the group that you want. That he literally wants this guy to win. And I think I'm certain that it's vice versa. And to see that's the teammate you want.
Well, and
that was so nice to see.
I
mean, ear to ear, happier than I might have ever seen him. That his best buddy got an interview with the team.
Well, and this is where it can get tricky, is because sometimes and I'm not saying that this is what the deal is with Charlie. I'm just giving an example. Sometimes it's, I'm really happy for my friend as long as they don't do as well as me.
100%.
Right, and that's a lot of the motivation sometimes. And what's funny when we were talking to Charlie about it is when he says, you're his friend, I'm his friend, and whatever. I'm not saying I'm not his friend, but it's more of like a mentor. You're his dad.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the friends, it's actually your friends, like your kids around your age that you're growing up with. And when you're in grade school and high school, it's not as a parent, because nothing really serious has happened yet where you really need a friend or you really need someone to be there for you. Right. And those people like your dad and those mentors that you have, if you're lucky enough to have them, they'll be there. But when you're talking strictly about who your friends are, it's tough to say, because I could think about the guys in his circle right now, and I don't know which ones are actual friends, and there's a lot that seem like friends, but who knows, right? And that's the difference. So when you have something like that happen to one of your buddies, and you can genuinely be happy for them, and not coming from a place of jealousy first or envy first, where it's like, like he deserves to do well because he's been working hard, or he's been doing the things he needs to do. That's what you want in a friend, someone who's genuinely happy and wants the best for you. Right?
Well, I had a conversation with him and his best bud 2-3 weeks ago. I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to address this first because it actually ties in. So one of the Eric, the scientist here, was pulled up some comments. I don't go on their social media whatsoever, except I'll get the odd. I just look at the posts once in a while, but I don't read anything.
Yeah, that's all me. Sorry to disappoint.
I'm not a fan of social media, but of course this is how we communicate, so I should just shut my pie hole. But I do not do any of that stuff. Like me and Eric provide the content. Eric does all the stuff in response. Of course, he does. Hey, Andy, what do you think of this comment or whatever once in a while? Eric's a very smart person to trust him with my life, so it's I don't need to say much about that. But anyways, he asked me one day. He goes, "Hey, how do you want me to address this?" So one of our what do you call them? What do you call it? A viewer?
Viewer.
Is that a viewer or
one of our viewers?
Customer? Well, no. Whatever. It doesn't matter. One of our friends.
Follower.
That's what everybody calls each other now. Friends. Sent a really nice text or comment to us and said that he really enjoys our podcasts, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. He had a question though. He said, I'm not really clear about the school dance. Can you just maybe clarify that?
So in one of our past episodes, I don't remember how detailed we got into it, but in passing, we kind of made reference to if you're trying to, you're going to need to make sacrifices, basically was what we're getting at. And one of the things that kids are getting into when they get into high school and all that is the Friday night dances. And that was just kind of like our metaphor for social life, basically. So this person was asking specifically about the dance, and the dance is a good example because it's where a lot of it's just really emblematic of what it means to be social in high school. And he basically
said, what do you see wrong with going to a dance?
What's wrong with going to a dance? So his question was, what's wrong with going to a dance? And they were basically what they were pointing at. They asked specifically about the dance thing, but they were more getting at, isn't it better to have a more balanced approach where you do hang out with people and be social, and you have relationships with your friends, and you do things other than just hockey? That's what they were getting at.
Okay. So I wanted to be clear, because we probably say a lot of things that you probably go, and that's cool. It's just our point of view. But so I wanted to just say something about the dance. So like you said, it's just a thing. It's just a thing, and I use that as an example. But I actually haven't. I made a conscious decision when my son first asked me. I said, "No, you're not going to a dance." So someone might say, "Well, that's a little bit crazy." Well, here's what I think about that, and take it for what it's worth. I just look at it because my son chose to play hockey. So what we do as parents, even when he was in Pee Wee and Bantam before it got real serious, is that we're paying a lot of money for hockey, and you chose to do that, so it's our investment too. So you're going to take it somewhat serious. And you told me that you want to get to a certain level, so you're going to learn how to make sacrifices and whatever. So is going to a dance? Well, first we start off with social media. We eliminated all social media. We just a little bit. We just put a little bit in there to make sure he wasn't going to be an idiot and hooked on it. So he's done a good job with that. So the dance is one of those things. It's like a Friday night dance. How I look at this here, Eric, and people, and you don't have to agree with me, is that I looked at my son like life gets leaky, and it gets leaky fast. And I said to him, I'm a firm believer of who you hang out with. And of course you're going to go hang out with these people at school and stuff. But I look like, it's like staying up late. If you stay up at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, nothing good happens. Nothing good. There's no good habits that you're creating there. So don't have that habit. And I was just trying to make him aware that there's going to be all these things out there that you're going to get tempted to do all the time. One's a school dance. It's not a big deal. You go out there, but I can tell you this for a fact. There's a greater risk of having booze, alcohol, drugs, and all the other stuff at a school dance than there is sitting at home with his 3 buds. So surrounding him with the like-minded people and getting him to understand that more and more is important, because that's just like one aspect of it. Yep. So it's just like so it gets leaky. And the thing is, it's like the social media. Once you give your kids the one social media and you say, well, you can use it for an hour a day. Guess what? It's not an hour a day, and they're all over the place, and then it's uncontrollable. So it was just me being a parent and just showing him, you have to pick your spots on when you want to have freedom. And it's just even like golf, right? He golfs. He loves to golf. So, but that gets carried away too. He wants to golf every day. Well, you can't golf every day. Like, these are disciplines that you have to impose on yourself, and it is what it is. So I'm not questioning anyone's parenting if they let someone go to a school dance or stay up till 12 or give them Instagram. That's none of my business, and it's all good. Just from my aspect being through this, if you tell me that you're serious about something, then we're going to be serious about it. And because I can see how fast things get leaky. Yep. So having said all that, we were coming off the ice one day with his best friend, and he was, I think I said this on a podcast recently, that they got pictures from someone that was at a party the night before, and they were just hammered, right? 15, 16, of course. Yeah. Right? I'm an idiot if I think that's not happening. Mm. But this is what I'm saying. Like, I can't let my son get leaky. It's my responsibility to be a good dad, period. Right? I own my life, and I'm gonna try to guide him the best I can. So as we were talking about that, they said, I think I could say no. I said, yeah, you think you can, and you probably could, but why put yourself in that situation? Because I get in situations where I have social events, and it's like, I don't really want to, because I take my business and what I do very seriously, my training. So when I put myself in situations like that, you like I said, your life gets a little leaky. You have a couple beers, a bad meal, whatever it is. And is it the end of the world? No, but if I can control it, I will. Anyhow, as we were talking in the backseat, they said that they wouldn't drink and all that stuff. So I said, okay, here's the question. I asked his best bud, Jerv, whatever. I go, hey, Jerv, so do you have any beers at all? And he looked, I go, yeah, I'm not really that interested, because I haven't been really interested in it. And I said, he goes, I had one with my dad, me and Charlie with my dad at the cottage. And I said, okay, right. So I ran over to his house and I punched his dad right in the face. No, so I'm like, okay, let's whatever. And then I said, Charlie, what about you? Okay. He's pretty straightforward with me, and I know where they are all the time, so it's not like a shock if I know where he is all the time, and I pick him up and stuff, so it's like not, and his friends. Anyways, so he says, I had a little buzz on once. I was at my sister's house, and they gave me a couple of beers, so that I wasn't happy about that. Right. So I looked at him. I'm like, whatever. So I said, well, here's the reality of it, guys. I said, if you're hanging out with the guys outside of your hockey group, the guys that have your back, guys that don't have a purpose the next day. I said, like the guys that gave you a call last night, those are the guys that, yeah, of course they're going to drink. What are they going to get up for tomorrow? They don't have to perform there's no one judging them on the ice or whatever. There's not a performance. So if they do that tonight and tomorrow, the consequence is really nothing. So you guys have a consequence, and it's important. So if it's important, you got to stay away. But I said, but having said all that, said, if you guys were to choose, if you went to a party and got hammered and I picked you up, I wouldn't be happy. And you know that. But if you two were at the cottage, or if Mom and I were gone for a night and you snuck into the fridge and you went and started sucking, and I'm not promoting it, I'm just saying there's a purpose I'm saying this, started sucking back beers, and we come home and there's 8 beer bottles on the ground, and you guys are like, hammered. I'd actually wouldn't be happy, but I'd say at least you did it together, because I know you have his back, he's got your back, you're in the right environment of people, and there's not the outside influence, and you did it together. You caused some shit together, right? And you guys would have each other's back. So no, don't drink. Yeah. But I would say, but that would be, I'd kind of get a chuckle out of that. Not really a chuckle, but I would be, what's the word?
Well, it's real life though. Like, we're talking about real life. Like, we want to talk pretend and act like kids aren't going to do this crap. Like they do. So this isn't the pretend show. Like, if you're looking for a pretend show, that's not what this is. But I really like how you phrase that though, how life gets leaky. And I'm assuming what you mean by leaky is things can get away from you quick, kind of thing. If
100%.
you let a little bit in,
Yeah.
it's really easy to let more in,
Yeah.
especially when you're a kid and you have these pressures around you all the time. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, when you're talking about, well, let's do this first. When you're going into these social situations, it's not just you that you have to worry about. And that's the main problem, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this with people, with this person that asked this question, the main issue when you go into these social environments is the people that are there, you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
There's too many people, right? And they're not all aligned. If you went to like a hockey party where it's all kids that play AAA hockey, that's a different environment. But when you go to a school dance or something where there's kids from all over the spectrum and there's 1,000 kids in there, you don't know who's doing what. So even if you think you're good and you're going to make good decisions, you don't know how someone else's actions are going to affect you in that environment. Yeah. And that's kind of more the danger. Assuming your kid is someone who has his head on straight, which there's no real way they can be when they're 14 or 15. Right. They're trying to figure it out and you don't know what decision they're going to make. But even if you have the best kid ever that just always makes good decisions, they have other people to worry about in those environments. And if it's like you said, not someone who has their back or is looking out for them or whatever, then they can run into these problems in those environments. So that's more what the issue is with the school dance thing. And the other part of it that I wanted to address with the person was talking about balance, like having balance in your life. And what exactly do you mean by balance? So
we're not carving you up at all, but we're just
we're just discussing, right? So when you're talking about balance, what I assume this person meant, which they kind of described a little bit, is they want to gain relationships, learn how to be social, learn how to be a part of a group and do all those things. That's what they kind of said in their response or when they were asking the question. And you don't need to go to a school dance type situation to get that. Right. Especially if you're someone who's a hockey player where there's going to be all kinds of social stuff. Yeah. You're going to go to your fundraisers, you're going to go to your banquets, you're going to go to you're going to do more hockey geared social things. Yeah. And we're already hyper socialized anyways because we've been a part of a team since we were 7. Yeah. Right? So the balance part of it, I'm not sure that is necessary. Maybe there's something to be said. This is just my opinion, obviously, but maybe there's something to be said. Like I touched on when we brought it up the first time, and going and figure out how to be in those awkward situations where maybe you have to talk to a girl for the first time and that's weird, or like it's guys and girls all hanging out in the same area and maybe you guys have never done that before and trying to navigate that. Maybe there's something to be said for that, and that's something.
But I think it happens anyways. Like I think we downplay. Like I think. Because the dance is the big thing, I think kids put pressure on their parents. And I think that's the thing to be aware of, is just talk to your kids just like you would. Because if it was you and me, we would have like father, son, whatever, we'd have a conversation about it. Right. It would have to make sense. And either way, like it's not a big deal either way. Yeah. But I just look at it like, if you surround yourself with the right, you got to know what you want, surround yourself in that environment. As soon as you get out of it, it gets weird. And sometimes you learn from it, and it's all good. Sometimes you need to go to the dance to say, well, that was kind of a waste of time. But more often than not, it's like I said, it gets leaky. So people don't smoke cigarettes like when they're 50 years old. They don't start off taking a cigarette saying, I'm going to smoke. That's it. I'm going to be a smoker. What it typically happens is they go to a party and they're trying to be cool, and someone has a smoke or they have a curiosity. It's there, and they light a dart up and they start smoking and they hate it. But because you did it once, you're probably going to do it twice. More willing to do it twice, 3 times, and then it's a life skill. And anyway, so balance is funny. I was just thinking about different things I was throwing in here for talking today, and it's like now that weed is a legal substance in Canada. Is it considered legal? Yeah, more or less. That's legal. And I don't know all the details. It's really funny, right? Because I made a decision a long time ago. I'm not touching drugs. I never touched drugs. And weed is free now. And hey, guys, I am not sitting here saying I don't do drugs. I'm cool. I'm smart. I'm better. That's not what I'm saying, because I love my beer. Yeah. But that's just a choice I made a long time ago. It's funny though. People, because it's legal, people like express it to me like, yeah, but it's legal. That doesn't mean that I want to smoke drugs. Like it's a funny thing. Yeah. It's just a funny thing, and it's like a hill that I've died on. I just won't do it.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this the other day too, which was interesting, is because it's the social impact of what people say is legal and not it's really funny, eh? Because you talk about alcohol, which is arguably far worse.
I agree 1,000%.
Arguably far worse.
Yeah.
But
in
socially,
many ways.
but socially,
yeah,
you don't think of it in the same way,
right,
as these other substances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is when you are kids and you get into these social, because I remember I was just there, right? I was just there. It's just 10 years ago, not even, right? And all this stuff is around, and the temptation is the same.
Yeah.
So whether you're talking about one or the other, it's just more there when you're in these situations. You're just more in the environment where something like that is going to crack the armor.
Yeah.
You know, you put how many times the hammer is going to hit you. If you let it hit you more times, the chances of it cracking are higher. That's it, right? And so if you keep putting yourself in these situations where these things are around and you have to keep exercising, maybe and maybe you have no desire, like maybe you have no desire to do it, and that's fine. But you are just like keep putting yourself in that environment where it's possible that somebody, not even you, just somebody makes a mistake and something happens that can affect, especially now with social media, and people take one picture, send one stupid text, everyone has it forever. It's never going away.
That's a stress the kids have that I didn't have.
Well, and these are things, and I said this too when I was answering that question. I keep going back to it, but the problem especially is that the kids are judged so young.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing you can do about that. Whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, there's nothing you can do. That's the way the game is. That's the way a lot of sports are. If you're not the best in your little cohort, your team, your division, your league at a certain age, which is young, you lose. You're not going to come back. They're judging you young. Yeah. And that is just the fortunate or unfortunate reality. So if you want to play around when you're 13, 14, 15, 16 because you think you need to have this social balance to go in these things, that's fine, but you just need to understand what the implications of that are. Yeah. And people are going to judge you. People are going to know, and that's just the reality. That's just what you're going to have to deal with. Yeah.
Well, Dalton said it best to Charlie, right? He said, do the things that aren't cool, because later on it'll be the coolest thing ever that you did.
They're cool. Yeah.
That's funny. Dalton left us another one months ago. He wrote it on the board after I wrote something. I love this. Weakness equals humility. Humility equals strength, and strength equals confidence. So an example, we're going to throw a couple examples out, is so for a general population of people, it could be, I'm going to use fitness, for example, maybe going to a gym. I don't need my glasses anymore. Could be a mom, a dad, someone that's overweight, haven't been in the gym for a while. Okay, so we'll use that. So you're going to the gym for the first time. So let's just say you know that you need to get back in shape, or you want to try to. And you're going to go to a gym, and maybe it's not even that, but let's just say it's a gym. So when you walk in there, you're going to realize that you're either weak in one way or the other. Physically, if you haven't lifted weights before, or even if you're on a cardio machine, your cardio muscles aren't up to snuff. So you have a weakness, and it could be mentally weak. Like, I don't know if I fit in here. I don't know if I belong here. I want to leave. Mm-hmm. Right. So what weakness brings is humility. Right. So humility just simply meaning that, okay, I'm not good at this. Right. So, but by working your way, recognize your humility and doing the thing, it gives you actual strength. So whether we're talking in the gym right now, so by doing, it gives you strength in a couple different ways. It gives you mental strength. It gives you like some pride, and it gives you, you're going to actually physically get stronger. And then as you get stronger in all those different areas, you become a little bit more confident that I can do something. I did do something, and all that kind of stuff. And I really like that, because it's actually a friggin' loop that just never, ever ends. And, we could say that as a hockey player, right? Is at some point, you're going to be the weak guy. Or it could be a skill. Like, let's just take a hockey skill. You're really good, but you have a skill that is weak. And once you recognize just recognize that you have a weakness, then it humbles you to make a decision. It humbles you to say, okay, I have a choice to make. I can make myself better, or I can stay here and have a pity party and make a bunch of excuses. So by working on that, being humble enough to work on that skill actually strengthens that skill. It strengthens the brain muscle, the confidence, all these different things, and just makes you strong, which leads to confidence once again. And you can do that in every little aspect of your life. And I think that's just such a great loop to be in, to understand that, recognize weakness, recognize humility.
Yeah, and the thing about that is to let yourself get into the loop. There's a barrier to entry on that, and everything you just said it's all predicated on being honest with yourself. Because the step one that you just said is weakness. Yeah. And weakness doesn't necessarily go to humility. Weakness could take the left turn and go to excuses.
Yes.
And then you never let yourself get into the feedback loop. So if you can go from, if you are honest enough to let yourself go from weakness to humility, then you can start to make the improvements. And then you go from the humility to the strength. Then you get the confidence from having that strength. And then you can keep in that loop like you're talking about. But if you're not honest with yourself, then you lose. You don't get to get into that loop. And it's funny because now fitness is a good example, especially for me, because I was arguably more successful with fitness than hockey to some degree.
Sure.
And you can't really go back, which is nice. Like you once you hit a certain level and you start to hit the loop again and you start to hit the loop again and you loop so many times that it is harder to go back than to keep going forward. And that's what's nice. You get so much momentum from being in that loop.
Your habit is to be in the loop.
Yeah, that's the habit.
Because it feels so good.
It feels so good.
It feels so good to overcome an obstacle.
Exactly.
Succeed it, conquer it, become better. You go, okay, I can do this over and over. And it's like, once you understand the loop, then it's not, it's, you almost want to embrace being weak.
Well, that's the next thing I was going to say is because...
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you said it better than I was going to say it. But if you do that, then because you've done it so many times where you've went from weakness to humility to strength, you've done it so many times that you're not so discouraged when you hit the next weakness. Yeah. Because you know, oh, okay, this is just another part of the process. Yeah. And that was one of the things that, to be honest, school taught me, because the whole major was just solving problems. That every time, and you've seen me do this with in a whole bunch of different areas where something comes up and it's like, okay, let's just tear that apart to figure out where the actual weakness is in why we can't get past this. So let's just honestly talk about why is this not working? And then you build from there. And then it's like, okay, now I know how to do that. Now this is a strength. When I get this problem again next time, it's not a problem anymore.
That's right.
Because I figured it out. And I have that in my head. Very, very hard for me to be discouraged about a problem now. Yeah. Because most of the problems that I face or that I'm going to face, someone else has probably faced, especially now with the internet. Yeah. So the answer is probably somewhere. Yeah. And you can go find it. Yeah. So, and that's the nice thing about that. You get into that positive feedback loop, but let yourself get in, which is you have to be honest with yourself to do that, right? Yeah. I really like that too. It's nice.
It's funny. So I made a lights again. Come on, guys.
Hello.
Is this for real? I always make you do the walking.
Well, it's freaking cold up here, man.
Yeah, it's cold in here. I made a conscious decision a while back that, like I said in the podcast before, that mechanical stuff I'm not good at, and I just usually and it's stupid. So I've been actually, instead of just calling the plumber or whatever, I actually think about it and say, what can I do, and research, and I start doing things. So I've been doing things at home, and it's actually, my wife was so happy yesterday because I fixed the faucet. Yeah. And it was simple, but that loop, I'm weak. I don't know what to do. I went and looked at it. I kind of, okay, let's give it a shot, did the thing. And I'm like, I think I'm getting this thing. I got it, fixed it, put it back together. Wow. Yeah. Kind of cool. I can do that again. I could do something else, maybe a little more complicated because you get used to it. It was kind of cool.
Well, and you might run into something where you actually can't figure it out, but then your last line of defense is like, let's go find help if I need to. Yeah. But even stupid things, like, you know how many little car repairs I've done to my car? Yeah. You know how much money that saved me? Yeah. Just go look on YouTube. Exact model of the car. Yeah. Exact same problem. Like, somebody's fixing it. And then you can just do it. And it might not be as graceful as the person in the video the first time, but now you know how to do it. Yeah. And then you can just
You're better.
Yeah. So now I would never say, because before, like a few years ago, I would say stuff like, I don't know cars. I don't know anything about cars. That's what I say. And I still don't know much about cars. But for little things around the edges, like I can fix them. For just sure. Like, it's not difficult. You just need to know what the steps are, right? So it's a cool thing. You can get yourself into that loop.
Yeah, it's a great loop to be in, man.
Yeah.
It really is. It's I've got a book coming in today, and it was recommended by when we were working out on Saturday, Eric Wellwood was Eric, in case you don't know, coaches the Flint Firebirds in the OHL, played for Philadelphia Flyers. He reads a lot. It's funny, our whole group, everyone's reading. That's actually
funny.
Success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. That's all I can say. If you and so this kind of actually was part of what our conversation is like. I looked at him and said, it's. We talked about a couple books we were reading. So number one, you have something to talk about outside of the hockey game, the event, the party, right? You have more things, which it's stimulating. So I said, isn't it funny, Eric? I said, look at Dalton, Eric, you, me. We're all readers. We all have, and we're the type of people that people like to be around. He goes, I know it's funny. And he goes, I just don't understand why people wouldn't read. And, we went through that rabbit hole a little bit. And I said, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. And anyways, he was talking about a book that he was reading. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. I didn't know what elegy means, but anyways, it's coming in today. I can't wait to start reading it. So I'm like, tell me about it. He goes, oh, it's really neat. I thought it was a business book. It's kind of like psychology as well. But basically, I haven't read the book, but this is the idea of it. It's basically the hillbillies or middle class and how sometimes they can never get out. And when they do, they just have super success.
They can never get out of being a hillbilly, you mean?
Yeah, but think about it.
Like being like, is it like
hillbilly
a lower middle class type of deal?
Yeah, that's what it was.
It's really hard to get out of that.
Hard to get out of like the lower middle class. So because there's a lot of times people talk about other ethnic groups and it's like, okay, we understand it, the ghettos and stuff like that. But what about this one? What about just middle class? And I said it was kind of like the 0 to 1 concept where you just can't get to 1 to move on. So it was like the psychology of like maybe you have. I'll give 2 examples. Like maybe you have, and I haven't read the book, but I'm just using this as an example. He said, yeah, you got it. Maybe you grow up in a house where, it's, let's say you're a hockey player and it's, you score 3 goals and you think you did good. And your dad's like, you should have had 5. And every time you do that, it's like, okay, I'm never good enough. Maybe that's the idea of it. Like, so when they go maybe to do a business or they go to actually get to a level of hockey, in their back of their mind, that self-esteem or that what's been told to them, that recording that they've heard all the time is that you're not good enough. So when they maybe go to their big camp or have their big chance, they're just in their mind self-sabotaging themselves because that's the voice they've heard the whole time. Mm-hmm. Just an example. Vice versa, because it's a thing that a lot of people don't think of, is maybe like it's the kid that grew up with a silver spoon and had everything handed to him. Maybe when the adversity comes, he just doesn't know how to handle it because his dad or his parents has always just bought their way or, patted their ass with everything and don't let them do the suffering. So when things actually get tough, maybe that's a reason. So anyways, that's the thing of the book or the idea we're talking about, which led us to another conversation, which I said to Eric, I said, I don't know about you, but for me, it's amazing. This question is amazing. I said, Eric, how many people do you think over the last 21 years, 22 years have come up to me and said, Coach, what do you think I need to work on? And he goes, I'd say 0 because he does it for his life as a coach. And I go, it's not 0, it's 2. And they happen to be in the exact same, on the same team. So my son, it's by default almost. He'll ask me, he'll ask me a question so we can work on it. So that I don't really count him. So I'm going to say 1. Come on, lights.
Need to be more animated.
Maybe we
when
have
we talk.
To turn them up. Yeah. Maybe we've got to move. So it's Jerv, the kid we were talking about earlier. Every single session since I've trained him, he skates up to me at the end of the session. He goes, hey, Coach, I give him a tap. I go, good job today. And he goes, yeah, what do I need to work on? Every single time.
That's funny, actually. He does that with me in the gym, too.
Yep.
He always comes up, did I do that right? Was that okay? Am I going low enough? Am I always?
Yep. And which is, so as a coach, it's great for me because it keeps me sharp. Because it's like, okay, this, I need to be sharp because this kid's going to ask me because I don't want to lie to him. And from the other side of the coin is like, I want to help that kid. We've said this a million times.
Yeah.
So I was asking Eric. So Eric was saying the same thing about coaching. He goes, and it answered a question. Like, because we sat down, we chew the fat in the office talking about like why are coaches like I don't understand. You get to junior level and pro level, and it's like abrupt. It's like there's no teaching. It's like they don't listen. They just do this, shut up, and they don't have patience. And I kind of said that to Eric. I said, maybe that's why. Because after a period of time, I think people, maybe I'm wrong, but I think people go into things with the right intention. Saying, I want to coach to help people get better, help them, whatever. And I could say this as a business person, it gets frustrating when you actually are doing the job extremely, like to the utmost, like tying all the loose ends and making sure all the details are there, to see someone walk away and go somewhere else and they don't listen to the advice that you give them. So as a coach, when like, if I'm sitting down with you and I start picking at your game and start coaching you through it, if you don't listen, I think it just, I don't know. I don't want to coach you. Just do it. Okay. Just shut up and do it. Mm-hmm. I think that's where it comes from after a while.
Well, okay. I'm going to circle back a little and then come back to where you're talking about, because I think it all kind of links up. We were first talking about the book and reading, and one of the had an interesting conversation with my girlfriend the other day. And I mentioned this to you actually. She was talking about going and hanging out with her friends, and how there's just not a lot to talk about.
Right.
There's just not a lot to talk about, and that's one of the benefits that you're going to get from reading, is that you're going to start to get a little bit more introspective. You're going to start to think about what you think about things, and this is how you start to build that skill of critical thinking, so that when you're sitting in a room with somebody, you can talk about more than just the one thing you have in common. So with this group of friends, it's your school friends, right? And they talk about school. Okay, when that's done, now what? And they haven't, this is just from secondhand from what she has told me. They don't spend a lot of time alone. They don't spend a lot of time thinking about things and trying to dissect things and really digging into what they think. So it makes it hard to have conversations. And in doing that, you're not developing that ability to critically think, which is a key to being able to ask a good question. Like you're talking about with these guys that come up to you and ask you, hey, what do I need to work on? So that's the first thing. That's why it's important that you are developing that, especially when you're young, because then and it's not even that they're trying to not ask questions. They just don't know. They just aren't aware that, I should be asking this person something.
Right.
So I'm gonna get back to your main point, but then you mentioned the 0 to 1 thing, and I don't think we've ever actually explained that concept. So I kind of want to explain it a little bit more.
Sure.
So when we're saying this book is called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and the premise of the book is basically the hardest step that you're gonna take is going from having nothing to kind of like getting your first win. Yeah. That's in
that
general.
Book, it's about creating a whole new world, like a whole new business, but in normal terms, yes,
right.
That's what it means.
So applying it to just like your general life, going from having nothing to getting your first thing, or making the first win in whatever it is you're working at. That's like kind of the metaphor that you can pull out of that for everything else. And whether that is something that's fitness or developing as a hockey player, or if you are someone like you mentioned, you're a lower middle class and you can't get out, this is where that concept comes in. Yeah. You're at 0. How do I get to 1? How do you make your first dollar in business? Yeah. How do you make your first sale? Yeah. How do you get your first win? How do you get your first goal? Like these are, because once you get that, you have one now, and it's never as hard as getting the first one. Yeah. And I talk about this in fitness all the time with, there's nothing ever as bad in fitness as the first, let's say 2 weeks, where you're really sore every time, or it's tough to go because it's a new habit, so you're not used to that. Your brain doesn't like that. But after you get through that first little bit and you get to 1, you got to 1 now you start to you can build momentum off of 1. You can't build momentum off of 0, right? You multiply anything by 0, it's 0. You get to 1, now you can start to build, right? Yep. And that's the important principle from that. That's why we mention that a lot, because it's an important concept for a lot of these kids. Now getting to what your point was, a lot of these kids are coming in at 0. They're coming in at 0. They don't have, and this is how I was when I was a kid. I didn't have a resource. I didn't have someone that could push me past a certain level, or get me a immediate connection, or put me in a good atmosphere that would give me what I needed to get. I was starting from nothing. I had no resources. And how do I get to 1? Yeah. And something no one ever really told me, and just making the connection to that, is you have these people like you're talking about on the ice, like, maybe I should go ask my coach. There's someone that might help me get to 1. There's someone who might help me take that next step to get better, or whoever it is, whether if it's a fitness thing, if it's a hockey thing, if it's a business thing, like go to your boss and say, hey, like, is there anything else that I could do? Like, how are you thinking I'm performing so far? Is there something more I could do for you? Whatever. This is how you...
Come on, man.
Tough, eh?
Yeah, this is a tough day. Is it something to do with the light switch?
I don't know.
I'll sing to everybody while you're gone. There, that might help. We turn the lights on. It's like, turn the power on.
I don't know. But anyway, so that's all I wanted to say about that is people, they don't really know or understand, especially when they're young, because no one really tells them to use your resources. Yeah. Just use what's around you, because it could be the boost that you need. And the last story, and I'll throw it back to you. I told you this the other day. We were sitting in the office talking with, I don't know if Charlie was there that day actually, but a couple of his other buddies were in there after a workout. Oh no, Charlie was there, and they were talking about summer jobs. Yeah. And they were talking about,
they were talking about this.
They were talking about this. They're 15, 16, so a common thing now is in the summer get a job, do something, and they're talking about, oh, maybe I'll go work at Home Depot, or maybe I'll go work at whatever. And I'm sitting at the desk, and I'm like, hello, like nobody. You guys want to work at PowerTech? Like you guys, you're not gonna ask.
It's amazing.
You're not gonna ask. Yeah. And so I brought it up to them. Yeah. I said, well, like, don't any of you guys want to work here? And they were just like, oh, like we could work here? I said, yep. But I started working when I was your age, a year older than you guys. That's when I started working here. Yeah. They're like, oh, like, well, what would we do? Like, it's like, well, like get a I'm gonna like do a resume just to make a resume.
Oh, 100%. I was so happy.
Come in, like that. We'll have like a legit interview. We'll actually talk about it and whatever. I'm not just gonna hire you because you work out here. Yeah. Because I actually, at the end of the day, it is a business, and I need you guys to do a good job. Yeah. But yeah. What, like you didn't even think to ask the question. I know.
And I've said this to you before. All the years that I've worked, there's only been a handful of people that actually asked. Yeah. And a couple of them that asked, I'm like, not you. Yeah. you know, but there's only been a few people that have ever asked. Yeah. It blows my mind, and it's the best job in the world.
Yeah, and I don't know what the source of that is. I don't know if it maybe is, in my opinion, because I was always somebody who asked questions, and I don't know if it was I just naturally had a curiosity about things or what. But if going back to what you're saying about reading, that's something, if you don't have that skill if you're sitting in a room and you can't have a conversation with whoever it is for an extended period of time, you need more to pull from. So start to try to develop that ability to think about things, because then it's just going to transfer into whatever else you're doing, whether it's training, whether it's hockey, whether if you read something, you go, what do I think about that? Yeah. And then you have to figure out what you think about it. So now that skill of thinking about what just happened, you'll be able to do that when you go take a shot and it comes off the toe weird and you're like, oh, what happened there? Yeah. What'd I do? Yeah. And if you can't figure it out, then you'll be like, hey, Coach Andy, can you watch me take this shot? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I can't figure out why I'm not getting it off properly. And that's how you can start to, and that's so funny, because it's not something you would think, especially as a kid. You think reading is going to make you better at analyzing yourself as a hockey player, but it's something that it can feed, right? Oh, it
has to, man. It's Eric and I were talking about that the other day too. The other Eric, yeah. Because if it was you, me, you would know. Right, I was talking about you. You're right there. I'd say you and I. We were saying the same thing. I said I said podcasts are good. They are, but I said there's something about reading. Yeah. Because it's a different discipline. You can't read and watch TV at the same time. It doesn't work. You can podcast and cook at the same, like, you know, it's the different type of focus, and it's such a good mental exercise to read.
I want to jump in on that again, because the podcast thing is funny, because anytime, and maybe you do the same thing. I think I listen to more podcasts than I do read, because I don't have a lot of sit down time to read. Yeah. So the only time I read is before I go to bed, but during the day I'm pumping podcasts a lot of the time. Yeah. And if it's something that I'm really interested in, that I want to learn, I have to make sure I'm not doing anything else. Yeah. Otherwise I can't process the information the same way I do when I read. Yeah. Because when you read, like you just said, you have to focus on just that. Yeah. You can't do something else. Yeah. Oh,
it's just a habit, man. It's a habit that I don't care. Well, and I'm going to say something. I don't have to, because this is one thing I loved about you, or that conversation, is there's a lot of people that just don't have time to read. I call bullshit, and you call bullshit, because we're not saying you have to read a book a night. What we're saying is, like, you think about it, if you read a page a day, it adds up, man. Yeah. It adds up. And Eric would say to you that you have time. If you don't say you don't have time, say I'm not willing to make time. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Because it's true.
Well, it's 100% true.
You have time for what you make time for.
Yes.
You can have time for whatever you want. If you, and it is one of my biggest pet peeves. And actually, I remember in the office a few weeks ago, I almost said,
yeah, you did.
And I stopped myself and corrected it. Yeah. Because I won't say it. I won't say that because I will have time for whatever I choose.
You're calling it for what it is.
That is what it is.
I won't make time for that.
I don't have
I will take that because it's as straight up honest. I just won't have time. I don't have time. I won't put time aside to do that.
Right.
Not that you can't. Well, you're just doing something
And people
else.
say this stuff to me all the time. They'll be like, hey, like, you got to watch this show. And I'll say it all the time. Like, I probably won't watch it, but so just explain it to me because I probably won't watch it. Yeah. I'm not going to set aside an hour and a half of my day to watch it. Yeah. So that's just honest. I'm not saying I don't have time to watch it because I could go watch it, but I just don't want to make time for that. Yeah. And people say that all the time. I don't have time to work out. Yes, you do.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, show me your day. Show me your day, and then we'll talk about whether or not you have time for it, right? And it's just it's another honesty thing.
I love that. Thing, right? And this is what that's what I love about it. It's the honesty thing, and this is what Eric and I were talking about too. The other Eric, not you. Again, you would know if it was you because you would have recognized the conversation. Is when you say that, just that conversation, you don't have time, you do have time. You're giving the truth, and the truth hurts. The problem with, like, again, rarely people have ever asked me, what do I do to get better? What do I need to do to get better? What is my weakness? What is this? Because I guess it must hurt your feelings to hear the truth that you need to be better at something. But if I just tell you, and I think you did it to me the other day. I'm going to look. I wrote it down somewhere. Yeah, you did on 2 occasions. If you just buy people's excuses, then they never get better. So why would I want to hang out with someone like that? But you have to be willing to hear the truth because it's the only way you get better. Like, I think people are so used to having people say that that's good enough. Well, at least you tried, because it's that's not what good people do. So when I was talking to you about, and I think we spoke about this. Was when I was telling you about, I think, my 50-year-old metabolism. This is what I would have liked. This is honestly what I would have liked to hear you say, or Dalton, because my wife would have said it, and because it's nice. Yeah, I think my metabolism. I think it hit 50 years old, and I think it's starting to slow down. She's getting tougher, to keep it off, and I'm working out harder and harder and all that stuff. And you just sat there and looked at me and go, yeah, I don't think so. So, well, you're not 50. You don't know. You don't know what I've been through, man. Yeah. And then you said, what about this? What about this? So I could have very easily said, yeah, but you don't know. But I listened to the information and I caught myself making an excuse. It's a heck of a lot easier if you would have just said, yeah, but you're doing pretty good for a 52-year-old man.
Which you are. But that was besides the point.
But we're talking exactly. We were talking about, we're having a real conversation because there's nothing worse than because you would have known I'm just bullshitting you anyways. So there's nothing worse to me that when someone's talking to me and I know that they're bullshitting me, and that they know that they're bullshitting me, and that they know that I know that they know that they're bullshitting, and we have a conversation. Exactly. There's nothing worse. Yeah.
We both know what's going on here.
It. So when you said, okay, so I took the information. I said, maybe I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper. And I did, because I care about my life. And I valued your information, because last thing I want is to have a conversation with you where it's just like, you know what, the guy's a loser, really. He doesn't, he talks the talk, but he doesn't, he tells the kids, he tells everybody how they're supposed to do it, but he actually doesn't do it. Yeah, he does. He works out and he eats relatively healthy, but he's not talking. He's not walking the walk. Yep. And it was really good because I buckled down and so what happens? I'm better for it. But the greatest thing in the world at that point, when you're going through a struggle, or not, I wouldn't even call it a struggle, when you're going through those things, would be to say, yeah, but you're 52. Look at you. You're doing great. You're lifting weights. You're running. You're in great shape. You got a little bit of fluff on you. Like, look at every other 52. And I would say, yeah, but I just don't want to look like every other 52. I want to be better. And then you go, well, but the greatest thing would have been, or not the greatest thing, a true, if you weren't my friend, or if we didn't have a real conversation where we helped each other, then you would have just said, well, yeah, you're doing good for 52. Yeah. And I could have walked away and gained 5 pounds a year.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Well, and that's
who I want to hang out with. I want people that are going to take me and say, no, you're not living up to what you can be.
Right.
You have a weakness. Fix it.
Well, and this is the thing. So with that example specifically, you're coming to me and like you're having a problem, right? So by you coming and bringing
show.
No, but by you bringing it up,
Yeah.
like there's something
For
that
sure.
you are trying to address.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't. If you were 100% satisfied with what was going on, then we wouldn't have the conversation. But you brought it
100%.
up.
Yeah.
So because of that, it's like, okay, there's something that Andy wants to address. So my option as his friend is to pretend that he's fine and exaggerating, or actually try to help him with the thing that he thinks he's struggling with because he brought it up.
Yes.
So for me, that's exactly why I went about it the way I went about it. I said, okay, there's truth to the fact that as you get older, it's more difficult to hang on to muscle mass. That's true.
Yeah. There's.
But that's the reason that's where the metabolism thing comes from.
Yeah.
Is that you lose muscle mass, your metabolism slows down because you don't have as much muscle mass.
Right.
But it's not just a given that you're going to lose muscle mass as you age. It's just harder to hang on to.
Yeah.
So for you to come and say, I think my metabolism is slowing down, it's like, okay, that's not just going to happen because you're getting older. So if you want to make a bit of a change, then what can you do about that? And there are things you can do about that because you're, like you said, you're not doing everything you could do to address this thing.
100%.
So if you want to change, like, let's try to address some of those things. And that's the honest conversation. But people don't necessarily want to have that conversation. They don't want to hear the honesty. And there's a difference too. I wanted to point out, there's a difference between, you say this all the time, like put some velvet on the sledgehammer, right? I don't need to come up to you and be like, Andy, like you're a fake pretender, right? Like I don't need to say that.
Yeah.
But what I can say is, let's have a conversation actually about what you're trying to do here and be honest about what's going on. Yeah. Or if a kid comes up to you and asks you about, oh, I'm having trouble doing this, you don't need to say, hey, you're shit. Right. No, so you need to fix everything because really you're not very good. And if you think you're going to get drafted, you're not because you're not good. Yeah. And like, that's not how you, that's not, no. Cause, and a lot of people say that too. Like when they're talking about, people say, oh, I'm just really honest. And it's like, no, you're actually just being an asshole.
You're a jerk.
You're just being an asshole. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a way to have the conversation and be honest about it. But that's a huge benefit. And that's what's nice about having someone that cares about you genuinely, because they'll have the honest conversation. They're not just gonna fluff it off and say, no, you're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Yeah, but it teaches you so much. Yeah, it teaches you so much because that goes back to that loop that we talked about. You think as a 50-year-old man, where I'm your boss, if we call it that. I'm your boss. I've been your kind of a mentor. I've been someone that you've looked up to. You've brought things to me your whole life. Do you think that's easy to sit there with a kid that's, I'll call you a kid, that's 26 years old and say, and you call me out and say, I don't think you're actually, I don't think you're I don't think you're reading your own press. So that makes me humble. Yeah, well, right? It's the humble makes you stronger, though.
Well, and the same thing, like vice versa for me. Yeah. Like anytime I'm going, and it's in a different way because you have a different perspective. You've been through life a lot longer than I have. You've started a business. You've run a business. So when I'm doing things, the most times it comes out for me is when we're talking about things with respect to like the business or programs or whatever. Whenever I'm coming up with anything, I'm like, hey, can you read this? Or hey, what do you think about this? Or is this a good idea? Or is there a better way? Or whatever. I hit you with those kind of questions a lot because I have enough humility to know that you have done this more than me and you've done it successfully, obviously. So for me to just go in and not ask you or not take what you say seriously and try to integrate it in plans for what I'm thinking of doing would be stupid.
Yeah, sometimes a dummy's approach is dumb.
That's right. Sometimes, Paul Quinn, man. That's exactly
right.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. Yeah, so I think that's it's a big thing, and I think that you want to try that. Yeah, I mean, try it. I think everybody needs to do that because I'll tell you, the biggest struggle that you're going to have as a player, like, it's not the good times. We talk about this all the time. It's when you're going through. When you're trying to navigate through the tough shit, and that's your weaknesses and stuff. So that's why it's a critical question, is to find out where. And Charlie's got an interview today, and his last question, his parting question, every single time, it's ingrained in his head, is, "Thank you very much. And is there anything that you know in my game that you think I can improve on?" He's had feedback. So the last time he got it, the one scout that was talking to him 2 weeks ago gave him he just suggested it. He goes, "This is one thing. You played great. Love this, love this, love this." He goes, "If I was to say one thing, it was once you make a move in the offensive zone, you should try to create just a little bit more space." Just my opinion. I just take it or leave it. Charlie's like, "Thank you." We got home. He goes, "Dad, can we work on that?" if he talks to 10 scouts, let's say in the OHL, he talks to 20 teams and he asks 20 questions, maybe the same thing pops up 20 times. Maybe he gets 10 different things. Maybe he gets 5. But he gets 5 things that he can work on. Maybe it's obvious. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's new, whatever. But that's valuable information. The last thing that my son needs or anybody needs is to tell them how good you are you're such a good skater. Mm-hmm. Oh, what does that do for you? Yeah. It does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. Doesn't make you better. No. Okay, now I know I'm a good skater. That verified that. How do I get better? You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was going to say. That, and that's what, when we were talking about that conversation about the metabolism thing, I could have just said to you, well, yeah, but you're doing great for 52, which is true. Mm-hmm. But you already know that. Agreed. Like, that's not helpful.
I want to do better.
Yeah, that's not helpful to you.
Right.
You know you're doing well for 52. You're kicking everyone's ass. Any 52-year-old wants to walk into the gym to have a go with Coach Andy, have at it, man.
Yeah, go for it. Come on, man.
And that's great, but not helpful for you. No. Not helpful. And that's the same thing with the kids. And the thing that's funny is
ego.
Oh man, but especially with the kids, that they might not know how huge it is to ask good questions, because like you were talking about with the coaches, from the coach's point of view, people aren't asking, so it makes them seem like they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And maybe they do. And or even if they don't, maybe you can make them by asking a question. And that's the thing
you've done your job.
Right. So you go, but this is what's funny is, like, you think this coach is such a hard ass, but then you go ask them a question, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, a kid finally came and asked me a question. Yeah. Like, let's help this kid. And then that thing happens where you care as much as the person cares.
Yeah.
You know, once 100%. You show me how much you care, it makes me want to help you more. And I would say, even with all the hard ass coaches out there, that's still probably true 90% of the time. Even if you have the most jerk, seemingly like dick coach ever, if you go ask them, hey, what do you think I need to work on? They're going to give you something that...
Even if they say it like they're a freaking angry gorilla.
Yeah. Even if they say, like, you're the worst and then here's 5 things that you suck at. Okay, well, now you have 5 things this guy just said that he thinks you're not very good at. So shave off the personal insult and the tone that it was delivered with, and just say, okay, but he still said these 5 things. Okay, well, which one of these things am I actually really weak at? And let's go do that. Yeah. Even the worst coach, if you just go and which is tough.
Well, they're going to respect the fact that you try.
And that's absolutely true. I can't think.
You can wear people down. Like, if you really want this thing,
talk about playing the game, man. Jocko, play the game.
You can wear people down.
Yeah.
Because you know what? At some point, they're just gonna have to say, okay, like, you really want this thing, don't you? Mm-hmm. Right? It's an impressive trait to have.
Yeah. Like, gotta ask questions, man. It's huge. So huge.
Yeah. Ask questions and don't be afraid to hear. Like, this is the only way that you get better. Mm-hmm. It's like it's the skill buckets. There's not just skill buckets. There's also the emotional and all that kind of stuff. But you got those skill buckets. Fill them up.
Yeah.
Fill them up. It's not great if your shot's great. You don't need that overflowing and, filling other, do that, continue, but work on the weakness. And I'll tell you, man, when you find success in your weaknesses, then it's just that loop, and it feeds you. You say, okay, I can do this once, I can do it twice, I can do it 3 times. I got 8 years to get to the NHL. I can do these things in 8 years, and then your life becomes believable. Mm-hmm. Or, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
becomes believable when you.
Well, there's another. I think this was a Tony Robbins quote. There was quality questions create a quality life, which is an awesome quote, because that is what help people. People talk about the motivation thing again, and a better way to instead of like focusing on trying to feel motivated, like, focus on building momentum for yourself, right? Yep. You build momentum for yourself, and then you can keep chugging, like, in that loop, like we said. And the way that you can start to get the ball rolling is you ask somebody who knows better than you, what should I be doing? And that's what's gonna start getting the ball rolling,
Yeah, success leaves clues, man. Like, people that have success, if you ask them some questions, they're going to give you some feedback, and it's just changes your life. Yeah, I would say that one thing that, just to go back to the when you were talking about something, what was it now? Anyways, I would just have the reading. We were talking about reading. I know there's a lot of resistance with that.
Oh yeah,
just read. But I was telling these guys, telling a lot of people this, and then the Slight Edge book came out, and then I use that as a term now. But I was telling that to people. I said, like, just just do 10% or a little bit more. And that the slight edge is like, just do a little bit every day, but do a little bit more to make yourself more interesting, and it spills all over your life. Read 10 minutes a day, and everybody can do it. Read 10 minutes a day, and then the next thing you know, you're going to walk into a room, might be 6 months from now, might be a year, might be 3 months, and you walk in a room, you're a little bit more interesting to talk to. It's very funny when I go to, to family gatherings and stuff, like I get, hey, would you read? They'll ask me some questions, and I'll go on a tangent about something, and people just sit there and listen. And like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I take a little bit of time and invest in myself to make myself a little bit interesting. Yeah. Right. Take X amount of time a day and exercise. You don't have to go and, you don't have to do the workout that we do every day, but do something. And then all of a sudden you're just a little bit 10% better there. And then you're walking and someone will, it's a conversation. You feel better about yourself. You walk in a room, you're a little bit more confident. People will notice, and you're like, okay, there's another aspect of my life, right? Yeah. Do I want to be rich? No, I only make 30 grand a year. Okay, take 3,000 of that and put it away. And in 10 years, you're going to make what you're going to have in the bank plus interest what you make in a year. And it's just going to keep making money. That's how you become rich. And I'm not good at public speaking. That was a thing I always wanted to. But when I would do it, I'm still bad. I quiver. I do it though. But I sit there and I'm an emotional guy. It's really weird when I do public speaking and I talk about anything emotional, not emotional, heartfelt, I guess. I talk about something I've gone through, or if when I'm talking to someone, like I know that you can do it. Like I tear up. It's like I sit there and I go, come, would you please stop? You're not crying, but that's how I am. So I'm a little bit of self-conscious of that. But you know what I did? I just did it. I'll speak in front of people, and it's like, okay, you conquer that. You're just a little bit stronger. You build this different human. You have to try things. You have to go to the places that you don't want to go. And I'm telling you, man, you get into this hockey world, and you go to the places that you don't want to go often enough, it just becomes habit, and you win the battle.
Well, and there's a piece of delayed gratification that you need to consider too. When a lot of times when you're, especially for kids, when everything's like so instant. Well, not just kids. I shouldn't say that. For everyone, you get things so instant now, right? Yeah. And the issue. So if you practice your shot, you're going to see improvements in your shot pretty quick. So it's easy. So it's easy to practice your shot because you get to see. But it's hard to make, and it's the same with school, not just reading. It's the same with school. It's hard to make the link of where your return on investment is. Yeah. It's not clear. Yeah. Whereas if you work on sprints, you're going to get faster pretty quick. Yeah. Especially when you're a kid and you're in that growth phase. Yeah. But something like reading, you don't get to see that right away. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it isn't there, and that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. And that's something that even if you're a kid, you can start to recognize that, okay, I know I'm not going to see this right now, but everyone's telling me this is something that's good for me. Everyone I know that is doing something that's worth doing is telling me I should do this. Because you hear it everywhere. Read. You should read. Yep. Most successful people that I've ever heard when they give speeches, it's one of the things they always talk about. Read. I read this. I heard this in this book, or I read this person's book. Even if they don't
everyone.
Yeah. Even if they don't directly tell you go read, the amount of times they're referencing a book or referencing something someone said in a book or whatever, it's all the time. So because you know that, or at least people keep telling you that, it's worth pursuing. 100%. Even though you're not going to get to see necessarily the benefit right off the bat. And that's the problem with like education and reading and things like that. It's that delayed gratification. You're not going to see it till later. You're not going to see it for a year, 2 years, 5 years. Like that's when you're going to see it. Yeah. But it's the same as building good workout habits. It's the same as building a good eating schedule. You don't see it today. You see it later. And that doesn't make it any less valuable. It's probably more valuable, arguably.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all the habits you have. Like Charlie's got that interview. He's had a couple interviews now, and he's had them, and it's like, it's interesting. I told him before, like, live life. So like one of the questions, right? They'll throw things at you. Like they're not trying to trick you. Like I told him, he said, I'm nervous about this one. He really wants to play here. A little nervous about this one, Dad. I said, okay, let's remember something. They want you. That's number one. I said, and they want the parents there in this one. So I said, they want you. I said, all they want you to, they want you not to blow it. They want you to show them how interesting this shit that you've done in your life. So, but one of the things they've asked every interview he's done is like, have you played any other sports? So he's, as a kid, it's like, articulate it now. So like the first interview he did, it was like not bad, but I said, okay, now let's think about what you've actually done and let's see how it applies and speak with some enthusiasm. Yes, I've played soccer, baseball, and lacrosse. I chose lacrosse because it It was a lot like hockey, and I learned a lot. I learned about the defensive side of lacrosse, and I was, I had body contact ever since, and I played, and there was slashing, and it was like a really rough game, in which I really enjoyed. That's a little bit more interesting than saying I played lacrosse. I've done some boxing. I've done some jiu-jitsu. That's a good thing. I've played squash on weekends with my dad all the time. That you're well-rounding it, so you build a resume to say, oh, this kid is interesting. He's sharp, right? That's one of the questions. Did you have athletes in your family? That's a question that gets asked all the time. Yeah, my dad was a hockey player, and he trains hockey players. My uncle was a professional boxer, and my other uncle was a professional hockey player. It's like, no, that stuff adds up. So have some, when you learn to articulate this, but this is another skill, is like, you have to understand when you do. My point of all that is, when you take your life at an early age, because like you said, you got to be ready to be a hockey player because you're getting grilled early. So you take all these skills, the communication skills, the reading skills, and all that stuff, and then it adds up when you're 15, 16 years old, 18 years old for interviews. Yeah. And they're important, because I told him, I said, at the end of the day, Chooch, you're going to have, there might be you and there might be someone else, and maybe you're the same. Maybe he's even a little better, or maybe you're a little better. But at the end of the day, that conversation that they have, they could say, we like them both, but that was the tipper there. That kid could carry himself. That guy could wear a C on his jersey. Or he's a stump, and I don't know about this kid.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I know you got a bit of a hard stop today, so anything you want to finish off with?
Same thing it's the same thing. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm going to change it a little bit. But first of all, go find your weaknesses and go fix them. Go work on them right today. Don't wait. Work on them right today. But I think I'm going to leave on this one today, is Dalton's leaving me. And I'm going to leave with this. He's a great example of why you want to do it right. He's a great example of why you want to have that dream in front of you all the time, because he gave himself a choice. He's 31 years old, and he's moving away, and he doesn't have to, we were talking about, he doesn't have to worry about one hit the rest of his life. He's paid this price once, and he did it by finding weaknesses and working on his weaknesses. But the dream is so big. You know what? The options that this game could give you, you have to do the work, though, and find those weak links, fix them. Like, go ahead and fix them. It's going to take some time, but if you learn how to do this, it'll be so worth it for you. I don't know. If you have some skill in hockey and a desire in hockey, I think it's one of the best. Well, you're going through it as a young guy with an engineering degree. Kids that are 26 to 30 that haven't bought or 20 to 30 that haven't bought a house. Now the housing market is just absolutely skyrocketing. It's almost making it impossible. I know one way that you can buy a house, though. That's if you play in the NHL, because you make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I told my son that, and I'm not stupid enough to think that anyone could just go play in the NHL. But when you do have the tools and the talent and the desire, go for it. Because that's one way you can buy a house, and that's the one way you can set up your future like Dalton. But it's not easy.
No.
But if you do, ask that question. Go to a couple people that have some influence in this game. Ask them, what can I work on right now to make myself better? If you do that, you're on the right track.
Yeah. Well, Dalton said then, what a great example of that. Ask other people questions. Ask yourself questions. Ask questions, man. Critically think about it. And that's what will get you here. That's awesome, man.
Cool.
We'll wrap it right there.